Welcome to Born to Win. I'm Brian Proctor, and each Monday I share a short message designed to help you start your week with focus, clarity, and intention. These episodes are built around timeless principles that I learned from my father, Bob Proctor. And when understood and applied, these principles can change the direction of your life. If this podcast has been meaningful to you, I'd really appreciate it if you would rate it, follow it, and share it with someone who could benefit from these ideas. It helps this message reach people who are ready to hear it. Every episode is designed to remind you that success isn't something you chase, it's something you allow. You were born to win, and when you live in harmony with the laws of life, you begin to experience that truth in every area. Today's episode is titled Mental Gatekeeping, choosing which thoughts deserve your attention, because your life is ultimately shaped by the thoughts you give attention to. So, take a deep breath, open your mind, and let's get started. Let's start with something you may have never stopped to examine, the constant stream of thoughts moving through your mind. You are thinking all the time. Thousands of thoughts pass through your mind every single day. Some are intentional, most are not. That alone is worth paying attention to. Because if your thinking is largely automatic and looping, then much of your life is being influenced by patterns you may not have consciously chosen. Now here is the key idea as we move into this. Not every thought that enters your mind deserves your attention. If you don't understand this, it is easy to assume that because you think something, it must be true. Or worse, that it must be important. But that is not how the mind works. You do not have to accept every idea that enters your mind. In fact, doing so can be dangerous, especially in today's environment, where we are constantly exposed to a 24-hour stream of information and endless social media input. Much of what enters your mind is not carefully chosen. It is picked up, absorbed, and repeated. And if you are not deliberate, those thoughts that are not necessarily yours can begin to shape your beliefs without your awareness. If you allow random, negative, fear-based thoughts that are designed to provoke to be absorbed from outside influences into your precious mind, you are placing yourself on a slippery slope toward a chaotic life. Because thoughts are not neutral when left unchecked. When they are accepted without a filter, without awareness, and without deliberate choice, they do not just pass through. Over time, they take root. They begin to shape your beliefs. And once a belief is formed, it starts directing your perception, your decisions, and your actions, often without you even realizing it. It is important to understand that your mind is not meant to be a passive receiver of thought. When you begin to examine the ideas you've been accepting, and you start questioning them, you move beyond the influence of your conditioning. Your paradigm is your conditioned mind. It is a collection of habits, beliefs, and patterns that have been programmed into you over time, much of it without your awareness. And challenging the patterns that you have been living with is how you move beyond where you are now. When you look around, you will notice that most people live reactively because they are operating through old, unchallenged conditioning. But the moment you begin to think for yourself, when you stop automatically accepting what shows up in your mind and start evaluating it, you interrupt the pattern. Because as you bring awareness to your thinking, you shift from reactive conformity to conscious, independent thought and begin to deliberately reshape your paradigm. And when the paradigm changes, your results change with it. This is where you actively use your higher mental faculty of reason, really as a gatekeeper. You do this by choosing which thoughts you entertain and which ones you reject. But if you have never been taught this, you naturally fall into a very common pattern. You begin reacting to your thoughts instead of directing them. A thought appears, what if this doesn't work? And instead of questioning it, you build on it. You give it energy. Before long, that single thought becomes a chain of thoughts, which becomes an emotional state, which leads to hesitation and then inaction. All because a thought was never examined. My father explained this beautifully using the stick person diagram. To understand it, take a piece of paper and draw a large circle, or use your imagination. Then draw a horizontal line through the middle. Label the top half the conscious mind. This is your thinking mind. This is where thoughts enter. This is where you reason and choose. Now label the bottom half of the circle the subconscious mind. This is where those thoughts become fixed as beliefs. The subconscious mind does not choose, does not evaluate, it simply accepts. It accepts what you repeatedly impress upon it with emotion, any emotion, including fear, shame, or anger. So, if you allow every thought to pass through unchecked, you are programming your subconscious mind by default. But if you become selective, if you use your higher mental faculty of reason as a gatekeeper, you begin programming your mind intentionally. And that is the difference. The difference between living by default and living by design. I want you to consider something. Be curious about where most of your thoughts actually come from. What past experiences and repeated messages are currently defining you? Because over time, those ideas have formed your paradigm. And your paradigm does not just control your behavior, it also influences which thoughts you pay attention to. So when a thought appears like, "I'm not good at this," that thought did not come out of nowhere. It is likely the result of conditioning and experiences. The problem is not that the thought appeared. The problem is that it goes unchallenged. And when a thought goes unchallenged, it gets accepted. When it gets accepted, it gets reinforced. And over time, it becomes part of the belief system that continues to shape your life. Awareness is the first shift. Mental gatekeeping begins with awareness. You must start noticing your thoughts. Not analyzing them endlessly, not judging them, just noticing. When a thought appears, pause and ask, where did this come from? Is this based on truth or conditioning? Is this helping me or limiting me? That simple pause creates space. And in that space, you gain control. Now here's what is fascinating. Modern psychology is confirming what has long been taught in these principles. Researchers studying attention have found that the brain operates on a system of selective focus. You cannot consciously process everything, so your brain prioritizes what it believes is important. But what determines that importance? Your paradigm. Your conditioning determines which thoughts you notice and which ones you ignore. And the more attention you give a thought, the more your brain treats it as significant. That strengthens neural pathways. In simple terms, the thoughts you repeatedly focus on become easier to think. This is what is known as neuroplasticity. You are literally wiring your brain based on what you consistently give your attention to. So it only makes sense to become intentional about what you focus on. Get clear on the areas of your life where you want improvement. Is it your finances, your relationships, your business? When you get clear and direct your attention toward growth, you begin filtering out what does not serve you. And when you repeatedly focus in that direction, with intention and consistency, you begin creating new mental pathways. Pathways that lead to real change. When you understand that you can detach from and observe your thoughts, something powerful happens. You recognize that you have authority. You have a choice. You gain the ability to say, that thought does not serve me, and you choose to let it pass. Most people never develop that skill. They identify with every thought that enters their mind. They assume if I think it, it must be me. But that is not true. Thoughts are suggestions, and you are the one who decides which of those suggestions your subconscious mind accepts and becomes a belief. So what is the cost of not using your awareness and your reasoning to examine and choose the thought you accept? It is simple. If you do not guard your mind, something else will. External influences, media, other people's opinions, old conditioning. And none of these ask for permission. They simply present ideas. And if you accept those ideas without question, you begin to live a life shaped by someone else's thinking. And that is not freedom. Freedom is the ability to choose your thoughts, to direct your mind, to decide what you believe and why. So, what does it actually look like to intentionally choose your thoughts? It's simple, but it's not always easy. And the reason it's not easy is because your conditioning is strong. Those old patterns of thinking are well-worn paths. They are automatic, they are familiar, and they are the path of least resistance. But least resistance does not mean it is serving your growth. If you want to build a new path, the one that leads toward your goals and your desires, you must begin choosing your thoughts on purpose. Now here's how that looks in practice. When a disempowering thought appears, don't fight it. Just notice it. Do not judge it. Do not wrestle with it. Do not give it energy. Acknowledge it, and then move it to the back seat. Don't let it drive. And this is important. You must be ready with a replacement. Not something fake, not something you don't believe, but something constructive. Instead of, I can't do this, you might say, I'm learning how to do this. Instead of, this is too hard, you might say, this is helping me become better. Instead of, what if I fail, you might say, what if this works? You're not ignoring reality. You are choosing a perspective that moves you forward. And that word, choosing, matters. Now, once you begin this intentional practice, the next step is repetition. The path is not built in one walkthrough. You must walk it again and again until it becomes clear and solid. Because one thought does not change a paradigm, but consistent, repeated thoughts do. Mental gatekeeping is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice grounded in awareness. You catch the thought, you move it to the back seat, and you choose a new one. Then you repeat again, over and over and over. And something begins to happen. The new thought starts to feel familiar. Then it becomes natural, and eventually it becomes automatic. That is when the paradigm begins to shift. Because you have built a new pathway, one that is clear, intentional, and strong enough to guide your thinking in a new direction. Now, as you begin putting this into practice, I want you to understand something first. You are responsible for the thoughts you give attention to. Not the ones that appear, but the ones you entertain. That distinction matters, and you must accept that accountability. Because the moment you do, something shifts. You are no longer a victim of your thinking. You are no longer at the mercy of circumstances. Your future is not controlled by what happens to you. It is influenced by where you place your attention. And attention is a choice that you make in your conscious mind. So the next time you feel doubt, frustration, or hesitation, pause. Notice the thought that triggered that feeling. Don't react. Observe it quietly, with curiosity. Now, don't give it energy. Move it to the back seat and choose a new thought, a better thought, a constructive thought. In fact, write that new thought down. Repeat it with intention. Come back to it throughout the day. This is how you begin retraining your mind. This is how you become less reactive and more in control. Because over time, you become defined by what you give your attention to. Not every thought deserves your energy. Not every thought deserves your belief. But you have the ability to choose. Take ownership of that power and begin choosing your thoughts intentionally. Because when you do, you begin building your life intentionally. So let me leave you with this. What thoughts have you been allowing in that no longer serve your growth? And more importantly, what thoughts are you ready to start choosing instead? Because the moment you take control of your attention, you begin taking control of your direction. Thank you for joining me today on Born to Win. If this message resonated with you, please share it with someone who could use a reminder of their own inner greatness. It also helps me to reach more people if you rate and follow this podcast. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Brian Proctor Official. And remember, success isn't about luck or timing. It's about alignment. You were designed for success, built for expansion, and born to win. I'll see you next Monday. Until then, think big, trust yourself, and keep growing.